The Dark Story of Atlas. The dark, cold, and mysterious deep sea is the last unexplored frontier in the Land of Dawn. Along the road from the surface, the sun fades and the temperature drops. Deeper then, there is nothing but only total darkness, called the Abysmal Sea. Here the currents and high pressure are strong enough to tear up even the sophisticated material Eruditio had created. This place is rightfully considered to be a forbidden zone of life where no human has ever set foot. Only the remnants of a civilization that were abandoned and eliminated were sunk down to the bottom and piled up. Even so, it's not just death here. Many untrustworthy and indescribable creatures, including Atlas, have struggled and multiplied for centuries in this dangerous area. They are one of the oldest living things in the Land of Dawn, devouring elemental creatures for power and survivability, which, however, made them imprisoned in this deepest place by the ancient people. Strong injections block light, heat, and paths above them, preventing their access to the world outside. To adapt to these high-pressure environments, the creatures have subsequently evolved, removing excessive shells and structures and developing various forms of liquid-like antimatter. In the endless darkness, there are no fights or disputes, only the law of survival, existence, change, and circulation. However, after the passage few centuries, things gradually changed and the law began to wither. Change does not originate from under the sea, but comes from above. The succession of civilizations and ongoing wars affected not only land, but also the oceans. Everything began to deteriorate, and the creatures in the Abysmal Sea, who were in a very bad condition, could no longer adapt to even worse situations. Withering and death comes without warning, as the abysmal creatures were forced to watch their deteriorating habitat. The biggest of them were the first to compete. These giant fibrous creatures withered their tentacles and bodies to rush up, but only to be halted and torn apart because of the injunction. Others couldn't understand their destiny, but they knew they needed a change that was the instinct of all living things. Therefore, they began their efforts in trying to break the orders. But the only prisoner who finally got rid of the Abysmal Sea was Atlas. As the most experienced individual, he felt change faster than his kind when the Abysmal Sea was involved in its ruins. He was the first to prepare for an escape. Torn flesh warned other creatures that their bodies were highly vulnerable to extraordinary strength. To break in order, Atlas realized that he must regain a rigid shell. Atlas continued to roam and search within the depths of the darkness, until one day, under a pile of remains of a past civilization, he found his destined shell, Mecha Sentry. A set of giant ancient machine armor. The Mecha Sentry, finding it rotting on the ocean floor like a piece of rusting iron that was rigid due to the loss of power. These big manually operated armors were in fact produced as war machines by the Iceland Golem, who had ruled the Northern Vale until their extinction, that is, the fall of the ancient golems. After which they were abandoned by later civilizations, dumped into the sea, and completely isolated and forgotten by the world. Atlas slowly approached Control Core. He then entered the center of the machine core, stretching out its tentacles, injecting it into each joint, and began to take control. Along with a roar, Mecha Sentry, who had been sleeping for thousands of years, turned on his energy-powered eyes again. The forgotten body and the soul left behind became perfectly combined and joined together. The giant Mecha Sentry broke through the injunction, and rushing from the inside to the surface, Atlas jumped into the raging sea. That was when the world welcomed Atlas's new player, Ironclad Kraken. Atlas felt strange and curious about this new world. He visited most of all the places that could be reached via the sea, driven by a desire to learn about this world and strengthen himself. He frantically withdrew knowledge from all kinds of creatures, races, and civilizations. Meanwhile, his control over Mecha Sentry became increasingly proficient. It seemed as if the machine was originally made for him. But no matter how long it passed, Atlas was always haunted by thoughts its kind were still struggling in the Abysmal Sea. the largest prison in the farthest place in the known world. Now Atlas not only had a hard armor but also a plan. He would break the commandment between the abysmal sea and the world, save his kind from an eternal prison. But for that he needed an ancient relic. There was a secret treasure known only to the pirates who were hidden somewhere in the frozen seas of northern Vale. It had the power to regenerate and also possessed enough strength and energy to change the ecology of the whole ocean. Atlas wanted it from the first time he studied its past story. Please do not forget to like, share and subscribe Clefformation channel. Also, click the notification bell for latest update.